Coming up, the former police detective who says he'll name those he believes were involved in a Westminster paedophile ring.
Public sector workers strike in a mass walkout over pay, pensions and conditions.
And a home for the homeless. Would you give up your spare room? That's at 6. Coming up, the former police detective who says he'll name those he believes were involved in a Westminster paedophile ring.
The latest headlines from here and around the world coming up in half an hour, but first it's the news from where you are.
Hello, welcome to ITV News Central. On the programme tonight, a former detective says he's prepared to name and shame high-profile figures he believes were involved in allegations of a Westminster paedophile ring.
If I'm asked in an inquiry situation, in a formal situation, then I'm prepared to say what I saw. I have no issue with that. I'll stand by my conscience.
The mother of a girl who died on holiday says her organs were returned to the UK in such a state it was impossible to tell them apart.
Hundreds of council workers, teachers and firefighters are on strike today over pay. They're telling the government they're out of touch with working people.
And a home for the homeless? Would you give up your spare room? Good evening. A retired detective has said he is going to name names in the case of an alleged paedophile ring, which he believes had links to senior figures in the British establishment. Terry SHUTT, who used to serve with West Mercia Police, says the names include members of the clergy, including a bishop and people with Westminster connections.
The former officer says evidence in correspondence he seized was passed on to Scotland Yard by him 22 years ago. But he claims the case was not investigated as vigorously as he expected and that he feels senior establishment figures had protected each other. This special report from our correspondent Keith Wilkinson.
Terry SHUTT was the investigating officer who looked at allegations that this man, Peter Wrighton, abused a young boy in Worcestershire. A very serious local case back in 1992. This was Mr. SHUTT at that time. But he says evidence he found in a number of bags in Wrighton's home was of international significance and so was passed on to the Met for a much higher level investigation.
The suitcases contained a large number of letters and correspondences from various people in different countries, the UK, certainly from Cairo in Egypt, and a number of people were obviously in connection with him. We very quickly established that some of the letters contained information which suggested that young boys were being subject of abuse by the people who were writing to Peter Wrighton.
What sort of people were these then?
The sort of people we initially established were people who'd been connected with him through the paedophile information exchange, and then more significantly, when we started going into more detail, we established there was figures of the senior figures in the clergy, a bishop in particular, and also there was links direct to the establishment in Westminster.
This was all passed on to Scotland Yard?
Yes.
And what did Scotland Yard do about it?
My understanding is that some of the names that were in the correspondence were investigated and subsequently arrested, but not all of them. And sometimes that happens in an inquiry, sometimes you get a lead and it ends nowhere. But I was surprised to find that some of the names that I had seen in correspondence had come to a dead end.
And where do you think these suitcases and the information in them are now? Were they kept by West Mercia or was everything passed on?
The correspondence was passed on to New Scotland Yard. The information that I kept was in relation to the allegations made by 2 individuals, and that information, that evidence, would have been archived for a period of probably 3 years because we didn't get anywhere with the investigation into the local issue.
And did West Mercia Police keep copies of everything, or did it just hand over everything and that was it? So there's no actual record kept at West Mercia?
There is no record. There's only the fact that we handed over the information and the letters to the Metropolitan Police.
So why wouldn't West Mercia keep a copy though?
We didn't at that time. It just wasn't the volume itself precluded that, and our involvement was merely at this end, and nothing else in there was local. It was relating to other things, other individuals who were beyond our investigative process, really.
Now, you may not be able to answer this accurately because it'd be just an opinion, but do you think there has been some kind of cover-up that's gone on?
I'm not happy that the investigation that went beyond what we had has been adequately and fully investigated. I think there are people out there, I think there was a culture at the time where the people who were involved in this protected each other, and I think that culture has existed up until the present time.
And the people you're saying protected each other, you believe to be senior members of the British establishment, the Church and Westminster?
I do, yes.
And are you going to name names in terms of any inquiry that takes place? You're going to say, yes, there was X and they did Y?
If I'm asked in an inquiry situation, in a formal situation, then I'm prepared to say what I saw. I have no issue with that. I'll stand by my conscience.
And so do you still feel some regrets about this case, that that it was perhaps the one that got away?
I don't have regrets in as much as we did what we could do. My regret is that perhaps other people didn't follow up as vigorously as they may have done.
By other people, do you mean the Metropolitan Police?
I do. Yes, I do.
A Home Office inquiry into historic sex abuse claims is being led by Peter Wanless. The Met says it will fully cooperate with the inquiry and provide detail of relevant information, and whilst this is ongoing, it would be inappropriate to comment. Keith Wilkinson, ITV News.
Well, this evening it's been confirmed that the Met is to triple the number of officers on Operation Fairbank, looking at historic child abuse. The number of detectives will rise from 7 to 22. Meanwhile, West Mercia Police has repeated its statement that the documents referred to by Mr. SHUTT are part of an ongoing investigation, so the force is not in a position to comment.
A mother from Redditch whose baby was killed by her partner has been found not guilty of child cruelty. Jessica Wiggins still faces a charge of causing or allowing the death of a child. Her daughter Isabella Valance was killed in December 2012 by her father Tyler Valance. The jury will continue deliberations over that charge tomorrow.
A mother whose daughter died in India says her organs were returned to this country in such a state it was impossible to tell them apart, let alone what caused Gurkiran Kaur's death.
The 8-year-old from Hockley in Birmingham died in April last year, and her mother is refusing to give up her fight for justice. She now wants to work with other families who've lost relatives in suspicious circumstances in India to try to raise awareness of their plight. Matt Ratcliffe reports.
Gurkiran Kaur was a schoolgirl enjoying a holiday in India with her family when she fell ill. She went to a clinic in Kanha in the Punjab where she was told she had a virus and placed on a drip. Her mother Amrit says it was then that a clinic assistant gave her a mystery injection. She died soon afterwards.
I used a sterner tone, so I said, "What is the injection for?" I said, "I need to know what you're giving her." He never answered me. He just opened the cannula and inserted the needle straight into it. As he pushed it down, Kiri's neck flipped backwards, her eyes rolled over and her mouth was left open, and the left arm, while I was holding her hand, she actually released her hand and it whacked back onto the bed and she was gone.
When Gurkiran's body arrived back in the UK shortly after, her family found out all her organs had been removed. It took a 6-month campaign to get them returned. But because of the state of them, the coroner at an inquest in Birmingham hasn't been able to tell Amrit Kaur how her daughter died.
When they got back, it was so difficult for the pathologist, Dr. Langman, to actually differentiate which organ. So this has made it extremely difficult. They have gone through such a long length of time to conduct all tests possible. They've turned back and said that it's absolutely impossible for us to actually give you a cause of death.
The organs had been embalmed, despite letters sent to Indian authorities demanding they were not. Amrit Kaur says that shows a cover-up. She says she now wants to work with other families like Scarlett Keeling's, who was found dead on a beach in Goa in 2008. She'd been drugged and raped.
Up till now, no closure has come to any of these cases. These families are still in the same traumatised field that I'm in at the moment. So I shall liaise with these families, and hopefully we should lobby and see what our MP can do for our British nationals.
We are going to be looking to the Indian Embassy here in Birmingham to get involved. They were very good last time round. We'll also be contacting Hugo Swires, who's the Foreign Minister responsible for dealing with India, and try and get him involved, get his assistance in this matter as well.
The coroner has told Gurkiran's family that the case can be reopened if they find more evidence. Matt Ratcliffe, ITV News.
The parents of a university student who was found dead at the weekend in Rugby have paid tribute to him. 23-year-old James Steen's death is being treated as unexplained. His family said he was a kind, caring, intelligent and very talented young man. Schools, libraries, swimming pools and bin collections have all been affected today by a strike by public sector workers.
Teachers, firefighters, council workers all walked out in protest at pay, pensions and holidays. There were hundreds at the rally in Birmingham, which was so noisy it caused the council to halt meetings. Mark Goff reports.
They came in their hundreds, trumpeting their anger at what they see as low pay. SHREEN FACEY looks after the elderly for Birmingham City Council. In the cuts, she's lost thousands on her salary.
£3,000 a year.
That's a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
And so, what do you want to happen now?
Well, I want them to give us back our weekend pay, double time and time and a half on Saturday as well. Yeah, because we do a lot of work. We're doing more work for less money. That's why I'm protesting today.
I'm a lollipop lady, we're dinner ladies, and they're just telling you you've got a rise and you haven't because they've taken something else away, so it's despicable. And I'm annoyed about the pensions as well because I'm 60 and it's ridiculous saying you've got to go to 65.
It was a noisy protest outside the council house, too noisy for the meetings inside.
It means that we've got to put off the planning committee, which would have been held today, for a whole week. So 35 separate improvements to the city, 35 investments have been held up for another week. So it means that our recovery as a city is held up just so that they can have this protest.
Which they're legally entitled to do, of course.
Of course, yes, but why protest when there's less of a cake? Why not improve the cake and then protest about what proportion you get of it?
I'm really concerned about the elderly, I'm really concerned about people with disabilities, I'm really concerned about children, and I feel that they don't have a voice and we have to speak up for them.
Well, I know if we do nothing, we'll get nothing, so we have to do something, but at the moment, Michael Gove isn't listening, so we'll carry on till he does listen.
Birmingham City Council said they put some contingency plans in to make sure that frontline services ran smoothly today. However, there have been some effects, most notably in rubbish collection and schools. But the protesters here today said they had to strike. They had no option. Mark Goff, ITV News, Birmingham.